Take a deep breath and remember who you are. Yeah, they're gonna mess with you, baby, you're a star. Stepping in the spotlight, you know that it feels like time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're symphonic, yeah, so iconic. If you didn't know before, now you know. Now you know. Take a big step away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur.
Yeah, we be grooving. Positively Powerful on a Wednesday morning with Stacey Steinmiller, the radical life coach. She is radical. She is radical. Good morning, Stacey. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. I'm doing wonderfully.
As am I. And it's perfect that we're going to talk about positivity. Imagine that. Namesake of the show. But you know how I was always saying it backwards? I was saying powerfully positive.
Yeah.
That actually works today because the subject is basically, and I know that there's the whole thing that people are talking about online where they're saying, you know, toxic positivity and like, you know, where you're like, you gotta be positive all the time. And you're like going crazy. But it goes deeper than that because we're inundated with a lot of negativity. And for me, I don't know if this is true for you, Stacey, but it comes in these waves. It comes in these big waves, and you literally get this tsunami of negativity and crap that gets poured on you. And you can either go down under the water and drown in that, or you can kind of fight your way through and get to the surface again and breathe. And that's kind of where I've been in the last couple of weeks. And I was thinking, you know, what were the things that I did to try to get me out of that? And it had me go back to our sessions, the group sessions, and it had me remembering that I needed to get in the moment, recognize, like step outside of myself, look from a third person point of view and say, what's going on right now? What's happening? Why are you feeling this way? All of these things. And then try to analyze it. And it's taken a long time for me to get to the point where I can actually do that and remember to do that.
Yeah.
But holy crap, is it awesome when you can?
Right. Yeah, it's
really,
life-changing.
Really
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I had just, the world was ending a week ago. It was over. It was seriously over for me. And obviously I'm exaggerating, but it felt that way. You know, it was really heavy. There was a lot of bad things going on. And fast forward to today, and it's like, holy crap, am I having a good morning?
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome.
And so that's why I wanted to ask you today, like, all right, so let's simplify it as best as we can for people and say, here are the top 3 things that you can do when the tsunami of negativity is crashing upon you, what you can do. Because you can recognize that. You can totally recognize when you're in the midst of a shitstorm, right? You can see that. You don't just be like, you know, you know that. So I wanted to you know, you to weigh in on that whole idea and like give people some tips.
Yeah, sure. I took notes since you had very specific requests for me this week. I was like, well, I better write some stuff down.
And I'm pretty sure that we are on, we're all on the correct platforms this week.
Okay, cool.
I made sure that I wasn't, you know, broadcasting it at too high of a resolution for Facebook.
Oh, I should have asked because I didn't bother doing the Instagram. I just put it on my
That's fine.
my YouTube.
We'll get there.
We'll
LinkedIn,
we'll figure it out.
Facebook, and the YouTubes.
Yes,
Perfect.
and say hi if you're here.
Yes, please.
Yes.
And we may even say hi
the
back.
more the merrier. Okay. All right. So you actually alluded to my first point I wanted to bring up.
It's like we rehearsed this.
Because, you kind of alluded to it with the toxic positivity and so forth. So I wrote down, like, don't be fake or inauthentic and trying to force the positivity.
Right.
Yeah, because that just creates more tension and it's going to spiral you even more. So it's more about the mindset and the things that you truly believe, and shifting those things that's going to be helpful. So if you believe everything works out in my favor, and you've been working on that and you've shifted your belief systems, you can call that up and be like, okay, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling worried, like I'm having all this going on. However, I know deep down that everything always works out in my favor, and I can like anchor into that belief. And that works versus being like, you just have to be positive and pretend that this negative stuff isn't happening, right? Like that doesn't work. Right.
It's totally the belief thing. And it goes back to when was it 2009 when I first saw the movie The Secret. And I know that's a really popular book and movie and philosophy about the law of attraction and I wish I can remember the guy. You know, he's a chiropractor.
Joe Dispenza? Joe Dispenza?
Is it Joe Dispenza
or is it Greg?
I feel like his name is. It might be Dispenza. I don't know. I'll have to look back finally so I can actually get his name right. But anyway, he talks about how if there's no belief there, it's just pointless. You have to. You can think all of the positive thoughts that you want, but without the faith that they're real, without the belief that they're real, it's just a waste of time. And he uses this this example of a seed and it's struggling to come out, right? It's growing. And he's like, and you're believing, you're doing all this stuff, and it's just about to pop out through the surface, and you stop believing. And then what happens? Nothing. Right. It doesn't ever go anywhere. So it's like that consistency of belief, and that's a tough one. That's a really tough one, at least until you get that, I guess, auto suggestion that train yourself to constantly remember to believe. At least for me, I have to remember to believe.
Yep.
It sounds weird.
Yeah, it's practice. True. I know. Yeah, and it does sound weird, but it's practice. And I always use the analogy to like lifting weights, right? You don't go to the gym once and lift weights and expect to be stronger. You have to go consistently, right? And it might be boring and you're not going to see results right away, right? You don't expect to go to the gym once and all of a sudden you're muscular, right? Like you have to go often and consistently, and the days that you don't feel like going, and things like that. It's the same thing. Like training your mind requires consistency. It requires showing up. It requires doing it. And for some reason, we just think about the mind differently than the body, in that way. So yeah.
So the first step that you mentioned.
I wrote. So it's basically don't be fake. Don't try to gaslight yourself into being positive, and like be authentic. So actually meet your feelings and what you're actually experiencing, but then ground yourself in the belief. I didn't eat a Twinkie today. I should lose 5 pounds.
100%.
Right.
Be authentic.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Don't try and gaslight yourself. that's not helpful. So don't take that advice if you've gotten that advice somewhere.
And
to do that.
there's also something to be said about not denying the reality of where you are at that moment.
Right.
Look at it and analyze it and know that this is where, like, if you're going back to the tsunami analogy, if you're in the middle of the ocean, telling yourself you're not in the middle of the ocean really isn't helping you.
Right, it's not going to help you, because you can't solve the problem,
right?
If you haven't accepted, right? Because then if you're like, oh yeah, I'm here now, we can actually move out of where you're at. But if you deny that you're there, yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors. If you're like, I'm not stranded on an island, then you're not going to build a raft to try and get out because you're not stranded. So
going back to the poor dad joke, denial is a river in Egypt. That is what a lot of people will do. They will just put it out of their mind. No, I don't think about that. And okay. So sometimes obviously not dwelling on something all the time is good.
Right.
But still recognizing, understanding where you're at and acknowledging that this is my reality right now. So
yes.
I just had to say
so
that.
that's what I put for number 1.
Okay.
And then then I went into that your fears are illusions. So if you're in a fear base, it's recognizing that you're disconnected from love, source, energy, whatever you want to call it. And so it's a coming back and remembering who you are. So also knowing that a fear-based state is a disconnection from your deeper nature, your truer nature, your power, and things like that. So that's what I said as number 2. This is where we start to lose a lot of people, though.
So number 2 is remember who you are, and recognize that you're in a fear-based state. You lost me.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just kidding.
My notes only make sense to me. That's the problem.
That's fine.
So if you're having fears, recognizing that you're like in an ego identity and you are disconnected from source energy, you're disconnected from love, you're disconnected from oneness. If you're in fear, you're in a state of separateness. Yeah.
And at least thinking back to your previous conversations, it seems that nearly all of the negative thoughts in these situations are in some way fear-based.
Yes.
Like everything.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Because every time I come up with I'm thinking this way, and you're like, well, that's coming from a place of fear. And I didn't initially recognize that. But it's true. If you go down to the basic definition of like fight or flight, as a living species, then you think about, all right, so what am I trying to do? I'm trying to escape this, or I'm afraid of the outcome, or every time that comes up, you have to kind of like dig a little deeper and realize that it's coming from a place of fear. And I've always had trouble recognizing that, and probably because that place of that fear base is almost so natural that you don't even think of it as fear anymore.
No, right. It becomes real in your mind. You're like, and this like, Stacey, like this is, it's like, it's hard to work, help people work through those fears, and even acknowledge that as a fear. Be like, well, that's the reality, Stacey, and this is just what it is, and but that's where I invite you to read books and how gurus respond. It's really interesting to see how they do
this
that.
This may be a silly question, but what's the easiest way for someone to recognize that they're coming from a place of fear, for those of us who may not instantly recognize that?
You don't feel peaceful.
You just don't feel peaceful.
If you're not feeling peaceful, there is fear.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you're peaceful, you are without fear. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of those things that I want to commit to memory, that I want to recognize.
Mhm.
So to, analyzing my own feelings based on the situation that I'm in and say, how do I feel right now? Am I at peace or is there a problem? If there's a problem, there must be fear. What am I afraid of?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I like it.
Yeah, and
like it.
the ego is always going to be doing so, but that always is happening because that's just kind of how the ego functions, right? Um, so it's not that you're doing anything wrong. That's just how the mind works and understanding that. But yeah, the more aware we are, and like I said, like the more you're catching it, and now when you recognize, like, oh, I have all this going on, and like, oh wait, I have some fears going on, right? You're just more aware of it, so you're able to kind of like step outside like you were saying earlier, and you're aware of it, so then it's easier to be like, oh yep, that's my ego being like, acting up and being fearful, and it's doing what it does. But I get to now choose to step into my deeper identity and come into a place of oneness, love, etc., and then move from there.
Just go,
Yeah.
shut up, ego. Get out of here, ego. You know what you're
I
talking
laugh.
about.
I'll laugh at it, and that's what, like, the more you practice it, yeah, it's like I call it like oh, this like this silly little human thoughts, or things like that. And you just see how silly it all really is, and then you kind of laugh it off and move forward. If you kind of look back at times in your life where you're like throwing temper tantrums about stuff, and everything obviously worked out, you're still standing, and then you're like, oh my god, like how embarrassing was that? I was like so freaking out about this thing.
And there's some people who create like alternative personas or something based on that. Like, oh, that's just caveman Scott. That's that's my caveman Scott. And where's my powerful Scott? Or where's the fearless or super Scott or whatever? But create these other individuals
Avatars.
that you can, avatars, right? That you can recognize and say, oh, what are you doing here, caveman Scott? Go back, go away. All right. That was my caveman impression.
I love it. That's perfect. Yeah. So that's what I put for number 2. Are we ready to move on to number 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So number 3, I wrote, take responsibility over being the creator of your reality. So after you kind of come back or recognize who you are, then it's like, oh yes, that's right, I'm the creator of my reality, and so I get to do whatever I want with this. What do I want with this? I'm gonna, again, so it's like facing it, we talked about earlier, right? So what do I want to create? Where do I want to go from here? I'm gonna name it and move forward and go where I want to, instead of, so this is basically the opposite of being a victim of your circumstances, right? So it's like naming, I'm going to take responsibility and create my reality instead of play victim to whatever circumstance is going on.
Right. And you always talk about reading books about this stuff. And my favorite thing to go back to when you're talking about this take responsibility is Invictus by Henley, right? The last 2 lines, I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. And Napoleon Hill zeroes in on that in a lot of his work, and it's really, really powerful if you think about it, because it's such a simple concept, though maybe not easy, but it's still simple when you think about it as a concept. Like, I am in charge. This is my life. This is my soul. This is my, like, I am the one that, don't let other things have that power over you. And that's something that I've always tried to tell my kids, like when they're like, oh, this person's bothering me, and I'm like, don't give them that power over you. Now, it's easy to say that to a 12-year-old, and they're like, what are you talking about? You're a freak. But it's true that, and as you get older and as you start realizing that you are the captain of your soul, you are the master of your fate. And
Mhm.
if you keep believing that, you keep just repeating that to yourself, it can pop in when you need it most. That thought can pop into your head when you're like, when you have a decision to make, when you have a reaction that you need to react to something, and then you have to think about, all right, so what's my reaction going to be? Well, I've found that those lines have come in to help me more
Mm.
often uh than they used to,
Yeah,
at least now, you know.
that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Take
Yeah, so
responsibility.
right, it's responsibility. So it's really working on, yeah, responsibility and recognizing and also naming and admitting to when you are in a victim mentality. And that's really any time you feel helpless, powerless, hopeless over your situation. That you're waiting for somebody to save you. You're waiting for the external to change your internal instead of shifting your internal that shifts the external, right? So like you're automatically just letting your life be at the whims of what's happening out here, and then you aren't the director, right? You're not being conscious of the life that you're choosing. So it's like being like, I'm taking responsibility of my life. And so, what am I going to pay attention to? What am I going to focus on? How do I want to show up? What are my values, right? And practicing the discipline to do that and live that, right?
There are some people that have the leaf in the wind philosophy of life where they're just, floating along, and the universe is going to move them wherever the universe wants to move them. And I think maybe there's a little bit of truth to that, but you still are steering that leaf, you
Yeah, so
know?
it's like, so it's getting in alignment. So that's the thing too. So that's why I put the number two is remembering who you are, and reconnecting with like that source energy, love energy, whatever. And then when you're in alignment and move forward from that place, that it's different from, and if everything works out in my favor, that I'm always being guided, I'm always being provided for. And then you show up in the world, like there's still action that you do, but you're moved from that place versus moving from a fear-based place. And so it's a very different energy. So it's like, yes, you may trust the universe and trust how things unfold, but it's not like, well, I'm just gonna do whatever, and
Yeah,
act from my
let
ego and
chance.
expect everything is going to work out.
Right.
There's a lot of nuance in that,
Always.
like what you're
Always.
saying. So yeah, there is a letting go, which is highly important, but then there's also a huge responsibility piece as well. They go hand in hand. And there's shadow on either side. And so like the
Mm.
shadow that you're kind of talking about is the one that takes no responsibility, and it's more of like the child archetype that just is like, well, I'm just gonna do whatever, and not have
Que
consequences to my action.
sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. Well, you've kind of come up with what I've just decided is now the 3 R's of positivity.
Ooh. Ooh, tell them, what are they?
Number one is real and authentic.
Mm.
The second one is recognize and remember who you are. And the
Mm.
third one is responsibility. Take responsibility for yourself
I like it.
and for your actions and for your future.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I like it when people can listen to what I say and then package it all nicely.
Yes, all with a little
Yeah.
bow. with a pretty little bow. So what's new? What's new in your world? What's going on with you? You got cool things brewing? Usually have cool things brewing.
It's July, so in Limitless Lounge, we've got a program coming up in a couple weeks called A League of Your Own. So that is,
Batter up,
right? Yeah, yeah. I did
call.
a little play on words there. So yeah, that's going to be fun for leaders and people that are doing amazing things and being okay with being in your own league, doing your own thing and not getting pulled into the whims of people pleasing or how I'm supposed to show up or what the expectation is, and coming into alignment with you. So that's happening. Yeah, what else do I got going on? I feel like there's so much going on that it's almost like nothing's going on. If that makes any sense. Because I'm just so in the moment of like, just doing today, that I'm like, wait, what? Like what's coming? I don't even know, but it's all on the calendar. I live by my calendar. I tell people, I'm like, if you don't put my calendar, I ain't showing up. So which is why I have this on my calendar, which you were talking about,
which
earlier.
I alluded to earlier when I said when one of us has a conflict, and by one of us I mean me. I still have not gotten this whole calendar thing figured out. I don't know what I do, and I think sometimes sometimes it's like the other person is trying to pull the wool over my eyes, because they're like, hey, do you have 12 o'clock on Thursday? I go, yeah. And I put in 12 o'clock, and then I go, hey, we still on for 12 o'clock? I said, no, I said 11. Did you say 11 and I put in 12? Now that's totally possible.
Right.
You know how it is when you got like, I'm doing stuff, there's somebody recording, there's something happening, the phone just rang, and somebody emailed me, and I'm trying to put in this into my calendar, and maybe I think I hit 11 and I hit 12. But that seems to happen a lot. We catch them. We haven't, knock wood, we haven't had
So you got to update your system on how you are doing things.
The system.
The system. So if you're noticing holes in your system, then we need to tighten up the system, which is actually probably energetic as well. You're probably being tested, right? On these things. Like, am I going to, trim up this energy?
Yeah.
Stop giving so much
feel
away.
Like the tests, that's 100% true. Those tests, it's like there's some really kooky person who's sitting in some control room going, all right, let's see what we can throw at Scott today. let's make him an hour early. Let's make him an hour late. See what he does. I think that's what happens. But you know what? I'm gonna beat you.
Because it encourages you to practice the 3 R's that we just talked about. And then once those are well practiced and in your system, then there is no reason, then they'll just start messing with you in other ways. And then you get to practice whatever the other thing is.
Or so rehearse. There's a 4th R. And the 5th R is return, because we'll return next Wednesday at this exact time to do a similar show about something positive, because that's what we like to do.
Take a deep breath and remember who you are.
RadicalLifeCoach.com. Hook up with Stacey. Let her transform your life. I am proof positive that it works as long as you do the work. And you can reach out, rockvox.com. You want to do a podcast for your business or your own personal venture, whatever it is, we can help. Been around since 2018, before all the podcasting got real big. So we were kind of dug in like a tick before that happened. But anyway, I'm getting off my high horse and riding off into the sunset. We'll catch you later, Stace.
Bye.
If you didn't know before, now you know.